Hello, it's good to be with you this morning, even if it is only online. Thank you particularly to Wendy for leading today's service and for everyone else for bringing things together while I and the family are still in isolation. We're doing okay, but it is good to join you this morning, and it will be good to join you again in person once we're safe and healthy and can do so. Today we hear from Mark's Gospel, a wonderful passage which I think is full of so many fascinating details. This encounter between a man, we know very little more about him than that, and Jesus. As he was setting out on a journey, a man ran up and knelt before him and asked him, "Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" This man knows something about Jesus. He's run up to him and knelt before him, adopting a posture of worship, of adoration. Time and time again in the Gospels we hear people kneeling before Jesus. Sometimes he allows them to do it, sometimes he encourages them to stand up, but whenever it's done in recognition of the fact that the presence of God, the fullness of God, is there in Jesus. And even more than that, he identifies Jesus as good. And he identifies Jesus as the one who might know how to obtain eternal life. And then Jesus looks at the man and loves him. And that's just an amazing detail. He looks at the man and loves him, and says this very challenging instruction: "Go and sell all your possessions and give the money to the poor." This man, we know now, is a wealthy man with many possessions, and he's told to go and sell them. But he's told to do it in love, and he's told to do it now that Jesus has ascertained that the final goal of what this man is after is eternal life. And I think those two things are important. Jesus recognizes that this man's heart is in the right place, that he's after eternal life. And so he looks at him with love. He looks at him with love and decides that what this man needs to hear is this challenge: go and sell all your possessions. I don't think that's an instruction to everyone necessarily, although it should at least indicate that that is a priority or something that we should consider. Almsgiving, it's good to be generous, it's good not to cling on to wealth or possessions, but this total disavowal of property is not for everyone. But it is what this rich man needed to hear. It is certainly a challenge that others throughout the ages have picked up on. I think of St. Anthony of Egypt, who, if he wasn't the first Christian monk, was perhaps the first to retreat right into the wilderness in Egypt, in the mountains, down the River Nile, and he was also the first to draw around him a community of monks and organised them according to a common pattern of life. He didn't write a rule in the same way that Benedict did, but he had people who wanted to live like him, and so came out into the desert, into the wilderness, to live with him. That's Anthony of Egypt in the 3rd century. But it said that he picked up on this saying of Jesus, "Go and sell all your possessions and give the money to the poor." And so that's what he did. The same is said of St. Francis of Assisi, whose feast day we celebrated just this past week. Francis coming from a rich mercantile family, having much wealth and possessions, and hearing that challenge too. Both Francis and Anthony, and I think this man in today's Gospel, hear that saying from Jesus and hear it with love. It's not just a phrase written on the scroll of the Scriptures. It's not just a word uttered by the priest or the deacon during the liturgy. It's not just a casual remark or a suggestion in a biography. It's a challenge issued with love, and it comes from the mouth of Jesus. That is what provoked St. Anthony and St. Francis to act upon it. And that may well speak to some of us here too, in some way. That's how the Scriptures work, after all. God speaks to us through them. We hear Jesus speaking those words with love, looking at us with love. It can be an uncomfortable thing to be looked at. We often fear being looked at, being judged for our questions. And I think, if nothing else, this passage encourages us. If we have the right goal at the end of our searching, that eternal life with Jesus, then there are no silly questions. There are no reasons to fear being judged or being looked at. For Jesus will just look at us with love. And yes, he may well issue challenging statements, but he'll do it because he loves us. I think there's a hint of that in the end of the passage as well, when Peter says to him, "Well, we've done that. We've sold all our possessions. We've come and we've followed you. Aren't we better than everyone else for doing that?" And I think Jesus' response there is to say, well, yes, you've done that, but that's not the challenge you need to hear right now. The challenge you need to hear is that those rewards, that eternal life and those blessings in this life, which he promises Peter will be yours, are not to come yet. You must wait. That was the challenge that Peter had to hear. Peter, who often seems to be characterised in the Scriptures as slightly impatient, slightly reactionary, slightly impetuous. Jesus has